Hello and welcome to PPM6 TV. Today I'm going to try and put this ASROCK Z270 Supercarrier motherboard into this, my old Amtech case. Along the way I'm going to try and fit my Core i7 processor, my Samsung M2 960 Evo SSD, and my Corsair Vengeance LPX memory. Not forgetting, of course, almost the biggest box of all, the Corsair liquid cooler. The usual terms and conditions apply. I'm not an expert, I don't do this all the time, I'll probably make lots of mistakes. So it's probably most valuable if you're looking for an idiot's guide by an idiot. So I'm going to start by putting this over there and moving all the stuff around. So I don't think you'll see me. I think you'll probably see my hands on the case as we go ahead with the build. And I'll probably be editing loads of stuff out along the way, because otherwise the video will be hours and hours and hours and hours and hours long. And nobody wants that. Anyway, thanks for watching so far. Let's dig into the ASROCK Z270 Supercarrier audio build and see how we go. Okay, let's start with the motherboard. If you've watched my unboxing video, you've seen a bit of this before. We'll just flip this up. It's probably gone all a little bit out of focus now, but never mind that. There we go, there's the goodies. Let's grab the top of the case, pull this out, and hey presto. There's the motherboard. We've already detached the connectors, so let's lift this bad boy out and see what we've got. Right, so I'm going to put the processor in there. Let me just pick up the box. Okay, part two. I've lifted the thingamabob to allow the processor to be inserted. I've got my processor out of the packaging here, and I'm not sure how you're supposed to line it up, but there are two little notches there that match up with two little notches on the seat, and I don't really want to leave my greasy fingerprints on there. You should be doing this all with a sort of a strap, which I'm not. So this little hook here catches under that as I push this down, and then this bit's going to come off because I took it off before to see what it did. That comes off. So now the processor is firmly held in the locking device, and I've got some thermal paste which is going to go on there. That's what I'm going to do next, but before I do that I'm going to unbox the cooler, so I'll pause while I do that. So here's the cooler. It's the first time I've had a go at a liquid cooler. I'll put the packaging over here. I'll tilt the mic up a little bit in case oh goodness me, ridiculous bits that I'm going to have to find room for inside my already crowded case. And I haven't looked in here before, and I've not fitted one of these before, so I really do have no idea about what I'm going to find. My guess is that fan header, presumably the coolant is in that radiator thing there, and this bad boy here sits on top of the processor. I better check. I may not need my thermal doodah, so that's the next thing I'm going to check. Do I need my thermal doodah when fitting this guy? Okay, so having unboxed the H45, here are the bits. Now the first thing is I've got an LGA 1151 processor, so I'm going to need these screws here. There's another couple of packs for AMD, etc. and I'm going to need the Intel backplate, which is going to fit onto the bottom of the motherboard. So we'll put the screws down there. Well, I think I know it's going to fit. So it's got some sticky, double-sided sticky on here. Probably this is out of focus, I'm sorry if it is, but let's get rid of that. And then line these up with a little bit of, they slide up and down on their rails, and then hey presto, that is in. And I've put this back on just to save my table from being scratched to bits. So I'm going to turn that over now, and you can see the bad boy sticking through there. Then we're going to need this thing here, which I think is going to kind of go on like that. That looks a bit tight over there, doesn't it? Oh, hang on. Ah, aha! Haha! That's better. I did say it was an idiot's guide. So anyway, I'm going to fiddle with that, and while I'm fiddling with that, I'll stop this so that I don't make any more stupid mistakes. Okay, so here's the deal as I see it. This pad thingy here is going to sit directly on top of the processor there, and then this brackety thing is going to go over the pad and connect to the connect through to those four things there with my bolts. Now I think that means that this thing, which you can just about see there, it's already got its thermal paste on it. What I'm worried about is the fixing of the radiator into the case. I've got two big case fans at the back of the Antec. There's one that blows down from the top and one that's above the back plate. But I'm worried that the depth of this over the back plate, I suppose it'll be sitting kind of like this. I don't know if you can see that. Actually, you can't see that. Let me just move that a little bit further. So the idea is this will be sitting vertically like this, and that will then sit down on there. Whereas if it sits on the top, it'll kind of be over here somewhere. And I don't know if that's going to work. Anyway, that's my next stage. So I think what I'm going to do, at the risk of doing this wrong, I'm going to fix the pad onto there, and then I'm going to offer the whole motherboard up into the case, try the orientation. I think I'll take both fans out. I've taken the top fan off. I'll take the back fan off as well, and just see which is the right approach. So bear with me while I switch off. Okay, so I've removed the plastic cover from the cooling plate. I've got the bracket. I'm going to fit it on. Now this is the bit where it all goes horribly wrong, and the reason I say that is that I'm worried about smudging the stuff. So I'm trying to put you can probably just see that just doesn't look. Oh, I see. Yes, I see. Sorry, there's a good example of my failure. I think I've got to put the screws in here first, so bear with me again. I've just widened the angle slightly because I have a feeling that this is all going to go horribly and comedically wrong. There we are. I've taken that off again. I've slipped the bracket over the and of course all the time I'm trying not to touch that, so I'm just going to look and see which was the best orientation. I'm so tempted to put my fingers on there, but I mustn't. I dasn't. So let's stick that in there. And I really should have put my glasses on for this, as I'm trying to screw that now into that corner plate, and I got the light in the wrong place. Oh, hang on, let's try this one here. It's a bit nearer me. Hang on. Does that? Well, there we go. Comedy failure number 2. I might leave this in the tape just so you can see how easy it is to cock it up. Let's get my glasses on. Well, the moral of that story was it helps if you use the right screws. I was using the ones for the Xeon, so yeah, that looks a bit smaller. It looks like it might go in there a little bit more easily, and so hang on, let's empty them all out before we start. Yeah, don't go running away under there. Okay, let me line that up again so you're seeing the whole thing. Right, pick up this, take the plate off, put the bracket on, offer it up. I think we're going that way. I think we need to go that way. So then well, that one has started. That one has started. That one has started. And that one has started. So now, on the principle of adjusting opposite corners, that one doesn't seem to want to go down very much, so I'll give that some extra attention. Oh, that one seems like it's quite loose. And that all now seems to be tightening up nicely. I have, of course, lost my screwdriver in the meantime. Let's have a quick look. Where did I put it? Oh, now, here it is. A little bit of an advert. King Dick Super 2000 fits Phillips and Posi drive. 6 different sizes in one screwdriver. 10 quid from every good super screwdriver shop. And it might even be made in Britain. I think it is. But anyway, maybe it's not. But it's a wondrous bit of kit nonetheless. Now, I'm cautious about over tightening these because on the one hand, I want this to be tight onto the top of the processor. But the other thing is I don't want to crack the motherboard base, which would be fairly typical of me. I think that's pretty tight. So I'm going to leave it at that. And the next thing, maybe even before I put the memory in, is offer it up to the case, see how that goes. Thanks for your patience. Here is the case. I've removed fans from here and here. Let me just widen a little bit so you can see that a bit better. Yeah, so I've taken out the fan over the back plane and the fan at the top. And so now I've got the whole assembly over here, and I'm going to lift it clear of the foam. Probably should have done that before I started, but you know me. Right, so I'm going to catch that up on top of there, if that's the right word, and then there probably is an easier way, isn't there? You think? So I'm going to drop that in there, lift the power connector. I mean, I've still got all the drives and everything in here from the previous install, which is probably not recommended in terms of the ease of access and cleanliness of stuff. Let's take that fan, that power supply bit out there. So there we go. So that looks like that. Now I've got 2 positions I can put this in. I can put it up here. That looks not too bad, but the thing is that annoyingly there's like a cable hook there, and actually in order to, I don't know why they've done it, they haven't provided the full 4 screws on the inside face there. There's a kind of a lip, so maybe the better alternative is to go in here, and do you know, that looks like it might actually fit, which is probably more than I expected. Anyway, that doesn't look terrible, and if I sound surprised, that's probably because I am. So I'm going to find the screws, position the motherboard over the things. You don't want to watch that, do you? I suddenly thought to myself But actually looking at the back plate is much easier than looking at the back of the motherboard to give you an idea of the connectivity. So we'll start over here with all the standard sound gubbins. There's an SPDIF port there, then a couple of USB 3s, the 5 gigabit Ethernet, 2 ordinary Ethernet, so lots of that, another 2 USB 3s, the Thunderbolt, the 2 Thunderbolt ports, which is why I bought the motherboard in the first place, display port and HDMI, the 2 aerials, a clear CMOS button. I don't know if I want that on the outside, but I mean, I suppose it's handy. Keyboard and mouse on the old-fashioned PS2 connector, and a couple of USB 2s. So now I'm going to try and fit that. Do you want to be watching while I do that? I haven't screwed the motherboard in yet. So I fit that over there. Comme ci, comme ça. And yeah, I was going to say as if by magic, but it hasn't quite fitted yet. And what's interesting is that I mean this guy here is going back into that slot. The that looks like it's just about lined up, and well, I wouldn't say it was perfect on the back. That looks better on the back, but then my, you know, as ever in life, then my thing, I'm going to have to fiddle with this, haven't I, and see if I can get it to work. So I'm a little bit miffed that Mr. ASROCK didn't include a set of screws to fix his motherboard into my case. Now I suppose he might argue that's the case manufacturer's job, but come on guys, this is hundreds of pounds we paid for this thing. And on the other hand, the good news is I get to look in my screw bag that I've been keeping for 20 years and find a screw which kind of justifies all those years of keeping it. You know, so you feel a bit better about hoarding parts for times infinite. Now anyway, that all seems to be in. I've put all the screws in that I can find, into the holes that I can find, and that seems pretty tidy. So now I've just got to fix the fan in, and I might only get 2 screws in that because I'm not sure that the that dimension there is the same size as the screw holes, but I'll check that. It's not easy to flip it up, so I'll check that. You have a break. There's a 4-pin which I'm going to connect to the, I think it's described as the optional connector, which is down here in the bowels of the machine, and this is a 4-pin, so I think it's going to go that way around. Can't see it quite there. Yeah, this is the tedious bit of video, isn't it? Have my head in the shot, that would be terrible. I'm going to drag the light over here so I can see better what I'm doing. Check the clip is on the right end, which it is. So you can connect 3 pins to these 4-pin chassis connectors, and they do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this one first because it's easier. So this is the CPU fan, and this is a 3-pin connector, but I got a 4-pin riser there, so you connect it across 1, 2 and 3, and I think what that means is that you don't get the fan speed control. There we go, that's on. So now just this bad boy here, a little bit difficult. That's the wrong pins. There are 2 other of these on the motherboard, I think, for water cooling the case, it says in the instructions. That feels promising. So we have the fan connected. I got 2 screws. Oh no, I got all 4 screws in. I was overly pessimistic about that side there. So this is fitted. That's fitting. Of course, I was worried about it bumping into the what normally sits over your processor is a great big fan, but of course there isn't one because it's all coming through here. While I'm here, let me just, sorry for the comedy lighting effects, I may as well connect the main power supply to the board. Let's get that up and in, comme ça, there's the extra power supply down here for the processor. I think that goes with the, oh hang on, I've only got four, stop, I've only got 4 pins on there and the motherboard has 8. This could be where the whole build comes to a shuddering halt. The good news is that you can use a 4-pin in this 8-pin slot. You just have to plug it into the first 4 pins of the socket. So that's what I've done. And that should be all the power connectors. Now I got a choice now whether I go for the sort of this sort of stuff, the kind of LEDs and switches and things, or whether I put the RAM in. The thing is, it has got onboard buttons, it says somewhere, to switch it on and off. So oh yeah, over here. I don't know if you can see. Can you see? No, you can't see. Let me just adjust that. Over here in this corner of the motherboard, there's a power switch and a reset switch, which are pretty funky. So, and I think somewhere there's a CMOS switch. Well, the CMOS switch is on the back. We've already established that. So I think given that the power switch is on there, I'm not going to bother connecting these. I'm going to stick the RAM in, and then I'm just going to try and post it and see what happens. So I'll get the RAM. Okay, so we're back after tea, and we've got our Corsair DDR4 memory modules, 8 GB, and they're 3200 megahertz. Now, I haven't consulted the documentation, and probably I should have, but about where they should go. I can remember reading somewhere that sometimes you put 1 and 3 in, and I haven't put DDR4 memory in before, so this is a first. In the olden days, I used to spine that back. Oh, there we go. So in goes the memory, or does it? Yeah, eventually it does. Chin chin. And here comes the second stick. And again, you should probably do this with a strap on. It doesn't seem to be handed. Is it? Yes, it is, I think. So we'll just chuck that back, slot that in there, and that side in there, and ka-ching. There's our memory. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do is slap a monitor on the back of this now and see if it will post. I've plugged the mains in, I've plugged the monitor in. I'm going to look up here and press the power button. And and if I remember to switch it on, maybe something might happen. Okay, take 2. Stuff happens. And if I power up the monitor, I keep forgetting, what is the post stop on? 88, 99, something like that? Can anybody remember? Answers on a postcard, please. There's a little LED display. Oh, can you see that? No, you probably can't. It's hidden under there. There's a display of post, and it stopped at 36, which may or may not be a good idea. I'm just putting my glass of celebratory white wine out of the way. I'm wondering why the monitor hasn't come on. Oh, is there a switch on the base that I haven't seen? No. So does that mean no, it won't come on without video input? I don't know, it's not my monitor. Borrowed it from my son for the day, for the moment. Oh, hang on, 34, 36. I'm not sure that's good. I've plugged the plugged the monitor into the display port just because I happen to have a display port lead handy. Let's try that again. Yeah, that seems tight in there. But absolutely nothing on the monitor to be seen, and I can't see a second on switch on the base or anything. Maybe the cable isn't tight. Yes, it is. So we've got this far, and we've kind of, it doesn't look stable, to be honest. It's tootling around 34, 35, 36. Unless, of course, I'm reading it upside down. Anyway, I will consult the manual in the meantime, and probably look at the M2 connector. There's a couple of, you can see where my finger is there, that's an Ultra M2 connector, that's an Ultra M2 connector, and I thought there was a third one somewhere. If you use these, if you use this one, you lose SATA 3, 0. If you use the third one, which I can't see, you lose SATA, and then if you use this one, you lose one of the middle SATAs. So that's something to bear in mind. Anyway, I'll power down. Oh yeah, there's the other SATA up there. Sorry, if I move that, maybe you can see it just where my finger's pointing there. So I'll power this down, and we'll have another go. Well, after some mighty faffing, I'm embarrassed to say mostly caused by the fact that the monitor wasn't properly plugged into the mains. I've now got the boot screen, the post screen, which is very, very nice indeed. I'm going to fit the M2 connector, that's the next thing to do, but that all seems reasonably tickety-boo. So I'm going to turn this all off. Make sure add the other memory stick, because I've only you can just see there's only one memory stick in there because I took one out when I thought it was a problem, and then we'll look at the M2. Thanks for your patience. It's a slow job, this one, when I'm in charge. See you soon. Now we're going to fit the Samsung Evo M2 card. I can put that one there. That's one position. That's position 2, and this is position 3. Each of them eat up one of your SATAs. I'm going to go in here, I think, just because it's easiest. I think this one eats SATA 3. And the answer to what those tiny little screws were for is revealed. And hey, would you know it? My King Dick screwdriver doesn't fit it, so I'll go off and get another screwdriver. I'll see you in a moment. So back again with a Phillips 00, and this one isn't magnetized, so I'm kind of, oh no, it is magnetized, there we are, just didn't seem to be at first. So screw in the SATA M2, hit power. And away she burbles. Looks like it's posting okay. Oh, hang on. No, maybe not. Oh, reboot and select proper boot device, or insert boot media. Well, I think that's not maybe too bad. I think if I hit restart and F2, maybe I'll get the, oh no, I won't. Let's try again. Reset. Or delete is the other option. Where's my delete key? I'm trying, oh, there we are. So now it says, it can see in the third slot the PCIe Samsung SSD. So I think that's about as much as I can do today. I need to plug up the drives. I need to put my sound cards in, diddly-diddly-duh. But I got to tidy this up now. So we will pause. We might even finish here, depending on how I feel about it later. and make a separate video, because this one has gone on for hours and hours and hours. But actually, apart from my idiocy, the build so far hasn't been too tricky at all. So thanks for watching. I hope it's of some help if you're building one of these, or of some interest if you're not. Take care. Don't forget, have a look over on ppm6.tv for all the reviews and stuff like that. Thanks.